What would you say was the most important part of the budget yesterday?
Well, certainly good afternoon, and it's great to be here. I think that as far as the budget is concerned, I personally am cautiously optimistic about the budget, but pleasantly surprised because we never saw real tax hikes. We didn't see a hike in the VAT, and that is, in a way, it's good news. But the budget is all about balancing, and it's a balancing act that you perform. So did the minister actually perform that balancing act? Because you have revenue and you have expenditure. And generally the difference between the two will give you a deficit, because governments always run on deficits. And really that deficit is growing. So the fact that we didn't see enough revenue being put into the budget in one form or the other, that is of concern. So has the minister really kicked the can further down the road? And perhaps, to put it crudely, we may have more trouble later. But I think it's interesting to point out that as far as the revenue is concerned, how do you increase revenue? Because we didn't see it in the budget. And the increase in the revenue will happen when we, in fact, grow the economy. And have we been growing the economy? For years, we've been talking about trying to grow this economy. And there are really two ways that you could grow this economy. We need to promote small and medium enterprises in South Africa. We haven't done that, I believe. And secondly, we need to encourage foreign direct investment. So if you take each one of those two, I mean, really, when you look at trying to really promote SMEs and entrepreneurship, we really have to look at this aspect, because many of our small and medium enterprises suffer from many challenges. Firstly, there's not enough capital for them. There's not enough skills in that particular sector. The cost of capital is expensive. The labor laws are harsh. And those are the kind of things I would have thought that the budget will talk about. It was heartening to note that the president, in his State of the Nation address, spoke about entrepreneurship. And if you recall, he did discuss this aspect about trying to promote 1,000 entrepreneurs in 3 months, and then thereafter 100,000 in 3 years. That is noble on his part, and perhaps I thought that the Minister of Finance will speak further about that. But I think what is most important is that we need to encourage foreign direct investment in this country. The President has been trying very hard for the past 2 years to try and promote foreign direct investment. And the kind of foreign direct investment that I'm referring to is people who come to South Africa and invest in the bricks and mortar of our country. In other words, they build factories, they employ people, they transfer skills, they promote small and medium enterprises by, in fact, trying to encourage them as part of their business. That's a kind of foreign direct investment that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the foreign direct investment that is at present happening in our country. All that happens is that foreigners come and invest in our stock market. That's what I call carry money. And you find if something happens in an emerging market around the world, that money disappears in a couple of weeks. We're not looking for that kind of money. Now, how do you encourage foreign direct investment in South Africa? We need to create tax holidays for these corporates. In other words, if you come to this country, you build factories, you employ 10,000 people, you transfer skills, we'll give you a tax holiday for 5 years. Now, countries in the Pacific Rim sector have done this before, and it has been highly successful. Now, I can't understand why in South Africa we're not possibly looking at this aspect. So certainly, I think that the revenue side has been unfortunately overlooked in the budget, and that's going to be a serious problem for us as we move on.
Mm-hmm. What wasn't overlooked, and it's the first thing that you brought up, was the issue of taxes, relief, and some newspapers referring in very glowing terms to the finance minister, saying it was a people's budget, a consumer-friendly budget. We also saw that lowering of corporate income tax and tax for lower-income workers. What could that do for the economy?
Well, certainly it does help the economy. It will help the economy to grow because there's more disposable income on the part of the people of the country, and they will be spending that money, so that does help. But that is minimal compared to what I'm referring to, to try and encourage, to try and grow the economy, because what you want to do is grow the gross domestic product of the country, and in that way you will tax more, and effectively you will end up more money, that the government will have more money. So that is what we should really be looking at.
Professor Dilip Garach joining us from our Durban studios. Before we go, we've just come from a briefing where COSATU was expressing their unhappiness with some parts of the budget, especially when the finance minister spoke yesterday about the lowering of the public wage bill. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the wage bill, that's the spending side. So we talk about fiscal consolidation. You want to try and reduce the actual debt, and that's what fiscal consolidation does. It reduces the debt of the country, and certainly the spending side. That as far as the public sector wage bill is concerned, that comprises 35% of the total expenditure of government, and that is a serious expenditure, and that needs to be reduced. And perhaps aligned to that is the state-owned enterprises. I mean, really, a lot of them are, for example, working for Eskom, and the unions are supporting that situation. But even if you look at the state-owned enterprises, we need to question ourselves once again, should government be involved in commercial entities? And the question could be, yes, they should be involved, but those industries that they are involved in, they should be strategic kind of industries. They need to protect the people of this country, the people who are employed. They need to also protect South Africa as a whole. But again, we really need to look at whether these state-owned enterprises should be wholly owned by government or whether they should have a partner along with them. Because the real issue is that government, because it's wholly owned by government, they get involved in the management and operations of these entities. They appoint the directors, they appoint management, and that is not so good because international experience has shown that ideally you can have an interest, but perhaps they could have a 51% interest and allow a foreign equity partner to hold 49%. If you actually do that, then remember you are actually getting money into the state, and the sale of state assets, which will grow revenue, is important, so they'll achieve that objective. Then also the fact that they will have technocrats who will run the show for them. So in other words, these technocrats have the skills. They will be able to run these organizations profitably, and in fact, not for government to pour money into these SOEs, but rather the other way around, where you're going to find that they will be able to declare a dividend. Again, international experience has shown that this has happened. So they declare a dividend, the government has more money in its coffers, it can use that money then to secure other issues. For example, we have agriculture and tourism, which are industries that have huge opportunities for South Africa. And that money could be utilized there rather than putting money into these SOEs or year-on-year taxpayers' hard-earned money.
Thank you so much for your time and insight this afternoon. Professor Dilip Garach joining me from our Durban studios. We're going to continue getting reaction from the different parties and constituencies involved on budget here and on point. It's time for a short break. I'll be back soon.